Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor to participate in this conference. I was a project manager for the Myanmar ICT Master Plan year 2011. Since then, I was very, happy coming to Myanmar, and it is a really great time because I just got back from Silicon Valley a month ago. So I want to share my knowledge from Silicon Valley. And also, I want to explain one of the best nation, Estonia, and also I want to mention the startup activities in ASEAN country, and the last will be my conclusion. First of all, we call it Silicon Valley, but in Silicon Valley we call it Bay Area. The area is smaller than 3,800 square kilometers from San Francisco to San Jose. The distance is around 80 kilometers, and population is 3 million. And San Jose has 1 million populations, and San Francisco has 860,000 people. San Francisco is a relatively small region. And from the racist basis, white is 36% and Asians are 34%. So actually San Francisco and Silicon Valley is not an American country, we call it, because there are so many Asians and so many different cultures. And also GDP is really amazing. GDP in California is bigger than France. And also average per capita income is $126,000 for one person. So family income for the middle class is $350,000. And if you make less than $73,000, your family is really poor. And housing prices, average housing price is more than $1 million. So if you have a house in Silicon Valley, you are a millionaire. And for 4 years, I stayed in Silicon Valley, and I lived in the apartment complex, and I paid $3,500. And also, I have to show the documents, which means I have to have an income more than triple of my housing fees. So that's really expensive places. And startup ecosystem, San Francisco to San Jose, we have lots of companies, but from the south, we have hardware companies. And up north, San Francisco, they have software companies. In the middle, there is Apple. It's very interesting because between the software and hardware industry, there is Apple. So we call Apple is a software and hardware company too. Also, we have a different corporate cultures. Many old industry located in East Coast or Detroit. Many, they produce manufacturing products. So they have lots of, old problems everywhere. Like bully to their employees, because the main industry focus on cost saving. So they have to pay less salaries and extort subcontractors, and also employees. Many Americans go to the university less than 30%, but in West Coast, almost all the employees come from the prestigious universities. That's a really different factor. So also, most Korean engineers have a master's or PhD degrees in Silicon Valley. Otherwise, they cannot hire by the global companies. For example, East Coast culture, you can imagine President Trump. He has a business there, so that's their culture. And now, since Obama administration, American government support IT companies a lot, and nowadays, America enjoys a full employment rate and dominant technologies in every sector. And also, they miss Steve Jobs because since 1980s, Japanese technology company dominate the United States. The Steve Jobs recovered the technology competence from Silicon Valley. And year 2003, Steve Jobs came back. And after that, we call the Silicon Valley returns with technologies. If you see the map, not only in the California, but nowadays many other states also have a technology competence. For example, AR/VR, nowadays we call it merged reality. Facebook, San Francisco is popular, and digital marketing, Adobe, RIA Utah. Probably you know that Utah is a kind of desert. There's no place to work in the company, but nowadays it's very popular areas. And big data, Microsoft and Splunk in Seattle, Washington State. And AI, Google, IBM, California, New York. Also, cloud and SaaS, Amazon, Microsoft, located in Seattle. And media and content, Disney, Studio, Pixar is Southern California, they are located. And FinTech, Silicon Valley and New York. And autonomous vehicle, Silicon Valley and Detroit. Probably you remember that American car is not a good for quite a long time. But nowadays, with the Silicon Valley autonomous technology startups, they become a world-class company again. And what is the merit for the Silicon Valley culture? Because two Steves, Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, doesn't have a college degree at all. So unlike East Coast, they prefer Ivy League students from the good family. But in West Coast, two founders doesn't have a college degree, so they don't care much about the college degrees. And they also have a different philosophy about liberty and other things, so totally different philosophies. And also in the company has different cultures. Like if you work in the Silicon Valley, you could make a minimum $150,000 if you work in one company for like 2 or 3 years. Because years of service in average workers is just 2.3 years. So they don't stay in one company for a long time. So it's really difficult to push their employees for hard working or something like that without incentives. And what is the best incentives for the employees? Money. Give them a big bonus. That's it. You don't have to worry about any other incentives. Giving the big money. They want it. One of my friends from Samsung, she works for 3 or 4 years, and she had a really hard time working in Samsung because she always talked back to her boss, and she doesn't fit in Korea. And in Korea, if she talk back to your boss, and you are talkative, and we think, oh, she's very picky and difficult to handle, and we are going to evaluate her very low grade, and she's going to say nothing after all. But she likes working in Silicon Valley, and now she works in Netflix, and she's 37 years old, and she gets $370,000 as a UI expert. 37 $370,000 for 38-year-old, engineer. It's impossible in Korea. And she's talked back all the time to her boss. So I was asking to her, you are not fit in Samsung? And she said, yes, no, I don't fit in Samsung, so that's why I came to Silicon Valley. That's the Silicon Valley culture. And especially the corporate culture, transparency, that's very important because every engineers are world-class engineers. So they want to know everything in the company. So we call it right to know. Daily scrum, meeting note, monthly, quarterly, all hands. Which means even my company, we have executive meetings and we announce all the meeting results. And Silicon Valley, every month, every week, they announce all the details about their meeting agendas. And efficiency, because employees work in one company for less than 3 years, there is no bully. Because we don't have a time to bother people. Because the employee will go to other companies right away. Because that reason, also ranks and role. There are many bosses in company. So if engineer has a good idea, then you have to explain it to your manager, and your manager explain it to your manager in general, and your manager in general explain it to your vice president and president. In the end, president doesn't have any idea what engineer initially want to make a product. So there is a kind of waste of effort and time. But in Silicon Valley, if you are an expert, you are the responsible for the products. So that's the difference. And also flexibility and accountability. They don't care about your backgrounds, only care about technical skills and problem-solving ability. And work scope, they start small things first. They don't want to solve the big picture first. And co-work, input. All your products are opened to your peer group, and peer group must give comments in a constructive way, not criticizing their other partners' products. And we have a various problem solution. Long time ago, one customer complained to the elevator company. The elevator is so slow, so we are really difficult to stay in the elevator. So this school in Stanford University suggests one solution: put a mirror in the elevator, not solve the speed, because people want something to do in the elevator. That is the one other solution. And accessibility, networking is very important in Silicon Valley too. But networking for yourself is more important, not your father's networks. And venture ecosystem is very well, so you can go to any meetup, tech conference, social events, and you have to use LinkedIn. If you check LinkedIn, you can have every information working in the Silicon Valley, engineers, professors, or businessmen, VCs, all of them. You can get the information for personal information. And diversity, yes. Silicon Valley, we have lots of people come from Asia to Europe, even the America. And so we have lots of people and culture, and we mix it together. And the second chapter is Estonia. Estonia was one of the poorest Balkan country when they independent from the Soviet in 1991. At the time, their per capita income was $2,000. But last year, their per capita income is $22,000. It's almost 10 times higher than before. But the population is just less than 1.3 million, and the area is 45,000 square meters. It's almost like a size of Silicon Valley, very small country with small population. Technically, they can do anything because no population and no technical base. But remember that Estonia spent lots of energy efforts for computer engineering and especially IT sector when they begin the industry. And especially nowadays, ICT industry shares like 7% of GDP and 14% of their exports. Although petroleum is the biggest industry, like 14%, and wood and timber consist of 12%, but it's not the main attraction point. ICT is the main attraction point in Estonia. Otherwise, nobody remember Estonia because it's too small. Why? Probably some of you remember that Skype. I still use Skype when I have a video conference with my headquarters when I was in Silicon Valley. The Skype was invented from the young Estonian engineers and University of Tallinn. 4 engineers developed this technology, and they sold Skype to eBay in 2005 with $2.6 billion at the time. There was a really big money in Estonian economy because at the time Estonia is a little poor country and no economic activities in private sectors, but he was the pioneer. After that, Skype was sold to the eBay, and eBay also sold to the Microsoft. So at the time, some Estonian engineers work in the eBay, and they started new startups, TransferWise. And also, the important thing about these Estonian engineers is they work in the Silicon Valley and send money and send the know-how and knowledge and invest into the Estonian startup community. So there's a bridge between the Estonia to Silicon Valley. So young startups have networks in Silicon Valley with their friends, and Estonian economy, they also have a economic base for startups, especially ecosystems in startups. So that is one famous thing, Skype, Estonia. So we call it Skype Mafia. They lead startup ecosystem in Estonia. And what is the solution for e-government? Almost 99.8% of government services are provided by e-government. Why? Because 2007, Russia attacked DDoS attack to Estonia. After that, Estonia prepared very well to protect cybersecurity system because at the time, core network was collapsed and almost government portal was closed. So after that, they are very cautious about cybersecurity. And also, if you see the X road, every government has many portals, but X road is like a single window, connect all the government portals. So Estonian people, when they are born, they automatically have an e-identity card. Using that, they can use all the government service, except marriage, divorce, and real estate transaction activities. And the Estonian government insists that reducing the administrative cost equivalent to 2% of GDP. There's a really big budget for Estonia, and technically they are almost 100% paperless government nowadays. And why Estonia is so famous in ICT sector? Because of the e-residency and startup hotspot. Year 2014, Estonia announced that the world's first e-green card to anyone who wants to start a business in Estonia. That was really something in ICT industries globally. Even some of the Koreans get the visa from Estonia. And now they issued 40,000 green cards within 4 years, and now 6,000 startups working in Estonia. And they expect 20,000 companies to work in year 2021. So that is something. Think about it. They have just 1.3 million people. It's very cold and small country. But now many startups consider working in the Estonia, especially who doesn't have access to EU market. So Russians and Finland, Sweden, and Northern Baltic country entrepreneurs come to Estonia to open their business. And now they provide startup visas too. And so if you work in the startups, international startups, you can have a support from the Estonian government. So this is one of the example for how government support private sector with e-government, I believe. And startups in Asian country. Google mentioned that Asian market will be a gold mine in digital era. Why? Because there is a market. And especially there are lots of problems, which means there are lots of solutions. Startup will be solve that kind of problems. So that's why we had to promote startups or private sector activities. Government alone cannot solve all the problems. And if you see this picture in 2017, there are 106 private companies, we call it unicorns, worth more than $1 billion. And mostly China, India, and there is Israel and Indonesia. It is very interesting. Indonesia is so popular in startup society. And if you see the business and market value, mostly unicorns located in Singapore. But if you see the business, shopping and online game, taxi aggregator, and motorbike Uber in Gojek, and online game, e-commerce, online booking company, market platform, real estate platform, gaming hardware business, and the last one, VNG, online game publisher. It was a Vietnamese messenger service company long time ago, and now VNG is one of the popular game company in Korea. Many Koreans doesn't have idea. They play game with VNG, but they don't know it is come from the Vietnam. And that's one of the amazing, development in Vietnam ecosystem. And if you see this picture, you can see the Vietnamese ecosystem and Indonesia. Actually, we call it MIT, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, or sometimes STEAM, Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia. But Thailand is one of the best country for the startups. But interesting thing is Indonesia. If you see the stars, there are lots of startups. Almost 1/3 of all the startups work in Indonesia. I was wondering why, motorbike Uber, I never imagined, because they don't have a credit card or mobile phone and payment system at all. But how come Gojek become a unicorn. That was a good idea because they have a problem, so they want to solve it, right? So I think in Myanmar we have lots of problems, I believe, Korea too. And there are solutions in various ways. So if you see this picture, probably it's, oh, there are many unicorns. Also, I can think there are lots of problems if you see the stars. That's why they solve the solution of problems. And startups are really enjoying in Asian market, e-commerce, fintech, and on-demand sales services. But first of all, when you start startups, you have to focus on consumer-based and domestic market first. Otherwise, there are global competitors. You can't beat them within short time. So you know Myanmar market very well. That is your strength. Even in Korea, we have a unicorn in Kupang, but they don't think much going outside. They mainly focus on Korean market because they are startups. So think about it. Probably many foreign companies, especially Thai, Vietnamese, or other Singapore companies, come to Myanmar with their business model. Probably sometimes you think you can beat them, but sometimes it's very difficult to compete because you open your market very soon and you don't have a immunity system yet. So you have to prepare very well and protect your market very well. Otherwise, you're going to lose all the markets you have. So my conclusion is, first, integrated architecture. If you see the left picture, is an Apple iPhone. What's the difference between using Samsung and iPhone? I usually use iPhone because if I don't know how to use this phone, then I'll think deeply. Then I can use it. It's an intuitive method. But if you use a Samsung phone, you have to see the manuals. That's the difference. And also, if you log in LinkedIn, you just put your name, password, and that's it. You can use the service. And the right side pictures, there's a X-Road, Estonian e-portal. They just ask one question, whether it is you, and then you can use the government portals. So intuitive solution is very important, and one question. It has to be very simple and easy to use the government portals. Otherwise, if it is difficult, then they're not going to use it. And CIO is very important. He or she has to show the big pictures and control everything. So integrate every portals or everything. And I think startup means solving the social problems with technologies and ideas. There are some disruptors and disrupted. Uber dominates all the taxi market in United States. And Airbnb, the market value of Airbnb is much bigger than Hilton Groups. And Netflix is now trying to dominate Korean market. And YouTube is one of the big problems for Korean ministry. They are the innovators in ecosystem. So improving the efficiency of the government and private activities all together, especially private sector, is very important. Government alone cannot solve all the problems. And also startups with high technology and innovative ideas, plus supportive government programs is very important. And I think one of the panel mentioned that e-government is a mindset, but I also mentioned that e-government is a social welfare. So it's very important to every citizens. Probably coming to Myanmar again is very happy to come to here again. And when I stayed for 3 nights in Myanmar, and I saw lots of, problems. And probably there are lots of solutions there with private sector and government all together. Thank you very much.
ခုလိုရှင်းလင်းတင်ပြပေးတဲ့ဒေါက်တာအီလူဆိုအောင်ထူးပင်ကျေးဇူးတင်ရှိပါရရှင်ဆက်လက်ပြီးဒေါက်တာအီဆူရိုအောင်ဂုဏ်ပြုလက်ဆောင်ပေးရနိုင်ပါရန်မြန်မာနိုင်ငံကွန်ပျူတာအသင်းချုပ်ဥက္ကဋ္ဌဦးခွန်ဝါလီစာစွာပန်ကြားပါရရှင်